I'm Dr. Foojan Zeine, and welcome to Inner Voice Show. On this episode, we're going to talk about relationship, finances, and a whole lot more. So stay tuned. Hi, I'm Dr. Foojan Zeine. I'm a psychotherapist. I'm an author and an international speaker. I have hosted my own television show, Inner Voice, in a satellite program for 16 years. Whether it's premarital counseling or through their marriage, how to deal with children, and if they're going through a divorce, to teach them how to communicate better together. In actuality, I think my job is very important to work with individuals and the couples in order to make the most important relationship of their life healthy, which makes them healthy. On my Inner Voice show, I actually interview some of the prominent psychologists and entertainers in English, and I also speak to some of the psychotherapists who are Iranians and the artists who are Iranians, and I speak in Persian to the Persian population around the world, from Iran or Europe or Japan, Australia, all over the United States and Canada, because obviously I was born in Iran.
Where's Dr. Zeine? Dr. Zeine?
Hello.
You also have been trained in my specific methodology and techniques, correct?
Yes.
Are you willing to talk to her after this show?
Absolutely.
And tell her the step-by-step that she needs to do to deal with what I believe is an addictive personality?
Yes, absolutely. The family goes through a lot. For boys who are becoming girls, the fathers of the family suffer. They will keep being confused. They look at all the childhood pictures that they've took of their son, and now they look at somebody who's standing in front of them as supposed to be their daughter. Coming up, I'm going to be talking to a psychotherapist about awareness integration model. You really want to know what that is, huh? Coming up. Stay tuned. Hi, I'm Dr. Foojan Zeine, psychotherapist, and I'm here with Nasreen Bafordari, licensed marriage and family therapist. We're going to talk about awareness integration model, a psychological model that I have originated, and Nasreen Bafordari is one of the first therapists who has actually learned and has been utilizing it with her clients. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for inviting me. This is an honor.
Some of the major topics that I actually talk to my clients who are couples are first talking about sexuality. Many people don't know how to talk about sex. Concept of communication about it is something that I actually have to teach the couples in how to do. We talk about sexuality. Many people come into their sexuality in a very automatic way. We can go through the whole experience and wham, have a great time, but being with another human being, it actually takes skills. So becoming aware of every area of how we think, how we behave, how we feel, how we communicate with another human being in order to have an amazing sexuality is part of what we also teach in this AI model.
So much of our sexuality.
People don't talk about finances a lot. They don't have a system. They come from two backgrounds of how they actually have created their finances, and I have to help them create a system and have a great communication in how to follow the system. Another main topic is when they actually have children. Now remember, two people, two backgrounds, two cultures, two sets of values are coming in, and now they actually have to bring those together, and that's where they need how to communicate, be flexible, and really negotiate on one way of handling their kids. Duet, sometimes you guys are entering each other's space and singing together, and then solo. How does that experience for you?
The funny thing is,
in-laws, we have to deal with them. They're always there. They're going to be there. We didn't marry them, but they came with the package. So somehow we have to really, really work with them. And if I have to actually add one more topic that I've had to deal with a lot of couples and individuals is addiction. Whether it's an addiction to alcohol or drugs, pornography, cell phone, computers is one aspect that really, really affects the person's life and in their relationship. With people who are going through recovery from addiction, they've had some sort of a trauma in their childhood. And when we work with the awareness integration model with them, clearing the trauma, the choice and the chance for them to relapsing is really minimized. I have been in the field of psychology for about 25 years. I started with seminars in ontology and psychology almost the same time. And I know you were part of the pilot study that we did, and in the result of that pilot study was that people were actually minimizing the depression 76%. They were minimizing anxiety 64%, and their self-esteem was rising about 43%. Now those are astonishing numbers.
You know, I wanted to go through it. I wanted to experience what my client would experience. So I asked you to work on me as a model for the group that was being trained.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you like what you see, you can see more on my website and my YouTube channel. And if you want to contact me, I'm on Facebook and Twitter. Bye-bye. Hello, I'm Dr. Foojan Zeine, and welcome to the Inner Voice Show, a show that's about you, about your life, and all that matters for you in your life from a psychological perspective. So I talk to experts in the psychology field and all the field that around medical and all that works with your psyche. So today I'm very, very excited to have Dr. Virgil Hayes with me. Let me tell you a little bit about him. He's a psychotherapist and an osteopathic physician. He's been in the helping field for 29 years, and people who know him call him a healer. So he acknowledges following his intuition, and which he refers to as the invisible means of support. We'll ask him what that means, and he is the author of the 16th Way, Healing Emotional Pain by Raising Your Consciousness. Hello, Dr. Hayes, and thank you for joining me on my show.
Good evening, and thanks for inviting me. I feel very privileged. You have a all-star cast, apparently. And then you include me.
Yes, I'm very excited. Yes, I've had a lot of great psychologists and people who have actually created theories in psychology, and I learned so much from everyone. And I thought I'm blessed to have a chance to meet with you guys and be in conferences and learn from all of you. And why not bring all of that to my audience and have you be able to speak with them, because many of these conferences are really just, psychologists teaching to other psychologists, and they don't really have a lot of conferences or views or mediums in order to be able to talk to everyone. So I'm trying to utilize this as that, and thank you for joining me and allowing me, sending me your book, and having us talk about it. So the first thing that came up for me as I was reading your bio is you work with your intuition. So tell me what that is.
Intuition, I call it playfully, I guess, my invisible means of support. Part of my background is I was trained in Ericksonian-style hypnosis, and it really wasn't a stretch for me. Apparently, once I started learning hypnosis, I realized I've been doing it for years. I just called it other things. I called it focus, concentration, relaxing, but it wasn't a stretch for me. So once I started applying the principles of hypnosis, I was like, wow, this is something really interesting. So then that's when I started I call it putting myself in neutral. Mm-hmm. And basically, I tell people I'm a hypnotic, I'm easy hypnotic. Mm-hmm. Just ask me to go into a trance, I'll go into a trance. Mm-hmm. And of course, I call that putting myself in neutral. And then when I put myself in neutral and I'm kind of getting in the moment, I have a lot of interesting information that comes to me and through me. And there's a little difference there.
That's interesting, because what you're saying is that when most people know hypnosis as if there's one person sitting and putting the client or the patient into this deep, deep sleep. But the other piece that you are adding to that is all other forms that we also call hypnosis, which is a point of focus. As you meditate and you're focusing into a space within inside of you, that as you have that space, then you experience connecting to the world, connecting and having messages come in, and that's what you're calling intuition. Is that what I'm hearing?
That is correct.
Okay, great. And then you say the innate healing of the body and mind. So it seems like there's a predisposition about knowing that your body, that you know how to heal your own body, or everybody, not just you, but you're saying that human beings have the way of healing their own body through their mind. And can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, our bodies, of course, that was what attracted me to the osteopathic profession. The idea that the body has its own pharmacopoeia, and that under the right circumstances, that's the key word, the correct right circumstances, the body can heal itself. And I go back to the wisdom that a professor I had years ago named Wiseman, and he told us in a microbiology course that if any river, that if it can flow long enough, will actually cleanse itself. So I basically applied that to the mind, that if you can keep the mind still, even though the river is obviously flowing, the body will heal itself, and the mind will heal itself. And of course, there's some caveats to that. You still have to have proper nutrition for the mind and the body, and you have to have relatively little stress. You have to manage your stress, and you have to remember to breathe, which is a little foreshadowing for something later.
So when you say to keep your mind still, I know that that's a difficult task for most of us. Like when I think about myself, I promise myself I'm going to do meditation every single year. Like that's my declaration. I'm going to do meditation every morning. Now, as I do that, first of all, my mind does not keep still. And then after 10 minutes, I jolt right out of it. And I move around, and I cannot sit still long enough or have my mind still long enough. So for someone like me who has a lot of energy that just doesn't sit, what do you suggest? Like, how do you go into this space of still mind?
Good question. Thank you. I think we anticipate that and expect that meditation, we have to sit still. However, did you know that you can actually walk and with your breathing and steps and coordination actually go into a meditative state as well? While you're walking on the pavement, the scenery is going by as you're moving, and you actually, whether you're counting your breaths or counting your steps, that occupies one part of your mind while the other part of the mind finds that nice relaxed zone. So it's you can actually make anything a meditation, believe it or not.
So when you're talking about going through hypnosis and then focusing and going into still mind, and I know that in the field of psychology right now, mindfulness is a huge hit because of many of the studies that has been done showing how much meditation works. And is your work related to the mindfulness work in the psychology world?
Yes. I don't know if I would call it mindfulness. Part of my inspiration came from, I understood that the Aramaic word, of course, Aramaic was the language of Jesus and his contemporaries. The word that was translated to English as prayer is slaughter, which means to tune in, to set your mind like a trap, to capture the thoughts of God and to commune with God, whatever God is to you. And that kind of one of those moments you go, oh yeah, that's kind of like meditation. That's kind of like a trance. Yes. And I found that was a good way of seeing it. You put yourself in neutral. You're not thinking about your bad memories of the past or your good memories. You're not anticipating your future. You just live in the moment. And there's a lot of natural healing that occurs when you can just literally put yourself into the moment. And 10 minutes might be enough.
And is the healing that you're talking about is an intentional healing? Like I'm going to, when I put myself into the state of focus, am I focusing on a particular type of a healing, that I want this part of my body or this type of a psyche or this type of a trauma to be healed, or it's just being in the present moment, that the system, like you said, the river, it runs so much that it cleans up all of it anyway. So as long as I keep a practice and discipline of doing this constantly, that my system starts cleaning itself up as whatever it needs to clean up, versus for me to have a particular intentionality toward it.
I think there's a lot of power to intention. As a matter of fact, I would actually say that intention is probably the big driving force. And so focusing on, of course, I've actually, when I've had body parts that were not where they could be or should be or feeling, I would actually focus on those. And of course, when I focus on them, I mean, it's literally, I mentally give it a shape, I give it colors, I give it a texture, I give it as many physical qualities as I can. And of course, as you focus on all those physical qualities to this pain or discomfort or this area, you can actually deepen your meditation.
Perfect. So what I hear is going in a system of first you, whatever works for you, whether you sit or you walk or however that works with your energy, you start doing something that is repetitive, or sit down and be with your mind and come to the present moment. So you allow the mind not to go to the past, not to go to the future, and come to the present moment. In that present moment, then you can also intentionally attempt to heal a part of you or an emotion or some psych part or a physical part by putting focus and intention of healing onto that. And when you do that, you're stating that creates some result of healing.
I think so. I've heard the expression years ago, and I think it's probably still applicable, is that thought follows energy and energy follows thought. So once you actually put thought on something, you're putting energy to it. And you put a little healing energy, it's even more the better.
Now, in your book, you had also talked about emotions being thoughts, because, obviously in our world of therapy, we have emotions, we have thought, and we usually think of them as separate things, and we distinguish them as separate things. But in your book, you actually say emotions are thoughts. So say more about that.
Thank you. Very good question. There was a paradigm I kind of stumbled upon, and a little background on that. Years ago, when I would treat people with chronic pain, and by chronic pain I mean pain that they couldn't find a organic cause for, but they still hurting. And I would actually, going back to the focus on the discomfort instead of ignoring it, which is a little bit paradoxical, but still, what they would do is they would focus on the pain, and they would have memories that would come to their mind. And then I got to thinking, that is so curious. Then they would be relieved of the pain once the memories, and they process the memories. So how did I get to the point where I was thinking that thoughts basically are emotions, emotions are thoughts? 2 words, acting out. What happens when children or adults act out? They act out because, of course, they can't put words to what they're feeling, so they act it out, usually as anger, but other behaviors as well. But still, they're acting out whatever the emotion is. And so I got thinking, so I would find that a lot of times just actually helping people label what they were feeling. Because a lot of people ask them how they're feeling. I'm really mad, or I'm really angry, or I'm frustrated. They'll give you a few words, but you help them find more vocabulary words to describe what they're feeling. Because one of the things I figured out years ago was that you're not just going to have one emotion going on generally. There's usually a flurry of those. Of course, what happens to unacknowledged emotions? They manifest as anger. So I got to thinking, so all I got to do is help people understand what they're feeling, whether it be frustration, whether it be annoyance, whether it be disappointment. And a lot of times they've had relief because they actually, and pain would go away because they actually put meaning to what they were experiencing. So acting out is what gave me the big clue that perhaps emotions are thoughts, not just something you throw away with the bathwater.
So you don't, because they're connected, you're utilizing them as one thing versus it could, because I had it as they're different components, but because our system is connected, obviously, the connection brings all of them together, and you have pathways through all of it because they're all connected. So your emotions are also your body because you could feel them in your body. So somehow it seems like they're component, which are all kind of connected together. That's what I'm hearing, is like you could take the pathway of the emotion, because the emotion is in a way, you don't have it, there's some sensation and there's something going on, but because yet we don't have words for it, they're just expressing themselves that way. And thoughts are words. So the minute that we have the ability to put the words onto them, then we behave a different way and we don't have the emotion. But on the other hand, even as adults, a lot of times we do have the words, but the emotions still come up. So the emotions appear to be some sort of a vibration of that thought, not necessarily just the words, but some sort of the vibration of the thought.
And when does the relief come? When you acknowledge and you know, hey, this is what I'm feeling.
Right.
And of course, I ask people sometimes, can you crave a food that you've never eaten?
No.
And because you crave something because you've had experience with it.
Right.
So you can't crave something, so that's a feeling. So a feeling is a crave, and of course you can't crave something you haven't had.
Right.
And if you never had it, you really wouldn't miss it either.
Right.
But
okay, so
emotions,
define thought for me, because as I'm hearing you, I'm trying to really understand and have my audience really understand exactly what you mean by what thoughts are then.
thoughts, you can describe a thought in several words. Emotions, generally, you can describe in one word.
Yes.
As a good rule of thumb. And so thoughts are, think about all the words that describe our thoughts. There are beliefs, there are opinions, there are values, there are memories, there are future thoughts, there are fantasies. There's so many words that describe thoughts, but they're a series of words. And emotions you can usually reduce down to a series of one words, separated by comma, because one of the highlights in my early 20s is I figured out that you can have more than one thought going on at the same time and more than one emotion going on at the same time.
Exactly,
And
yes.
And that's kind of liberating.
Yes, you can have multiple of all of them happening. We're pretty complex beings, and you're right. You can have all of them at the same time. But the distinction, what I'm hearing is they are connected together, so they're similar and the same in one way, but they're also distinctions, which makes them a bit different. And you work through them all together. It's as if it's like a package. You work through the package together. Mm-hmm. And if the package is not together, then you cannot work through it. Like if you only are focusing on one element of it, the healing doesn't happen. If it happens as a package, then the healing happens because they're all interconnected and they're all kind of they're together. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, and of course, if you can picture Legos, mm-hmm. Or a puzzle, if there's pieces missing, it's really hard to sometimes continue putting something together because you need a piece to link something. Yeah, I like your analogy. But of course, the more awareness you have, which of course goes back to consciousness, the more awareness you have of what the feelings are, the emotions, and the sensation that you put words to describe them. Then it's no longer just a sensation. And of course, as we know, neuroscience will teach you that basically whatever pain or sensation, it goes to the thalamus. It's just impulses, it's just energy. And then you put meaning to it with your cortex. Mm-hmm. So basically, everything is just a signal that we somehow or another interpret.
Virgil, you talk about different types of consciousness, and not different types, but different levels of consciousness. You said the three minds, the three levels of consciousness. Can you say a little bit about that? Because you just talked about awareness and consciousness, and the more that you're doing this exercise about becoming focused on that moment and your body and bringing all of this into consciousness, and then you separate them into three levels. So say more about that.
We got our conscious mind, which of course is our, what I call the beta wave every moment awareness. And then the subconscious mind, which is literally means beneath the level of consciousness. And I've heard over the years different numbers, like maybe we can hold on to 7 to 9 bits of information consciously, and after that it's subconscious. And of course in the book I have this analogy of being at a party, at a ballroom. And the conscious mind is a conversation that you're having with someone in front of you, much like you're chatting with someone. And of course, the subconscious is all those other conversations that you're not a part of that are going on. And of course, the superconscious is every syllable, every consonant, it's every air molecule, it's every brick, it's every shred of polyester that made the carpet, it's paint on the walls, it's everything. So that'd be the superconscious.
Okay. And then you talk about tuning into the level of consciousness that you have. So there is a way of going from one level, which is just the beta wave of us being in tune with everything that's there, but to also go, there's a pathway to subconscious, which you say that hypnosis definitely is a pathway to subconscious. I've done that for about 20 years, so definitely I know it is a path to subconscious. And then you also talk about tuning into the other levels of consciousness, which you said the third level, which you kind of, are very conscious of every bit. So can you talk a bit about how to get from one level to another? What type of exercises to do in order to go from one level to the other?
Well, a good question. Again, one of the things I've thought of over the years, in the beginning, my idea of hypnosis was that hypnosis takes you from conscious awareness to subconscious awareness. And then all of a sudden I started hearing about all the things that probably 95%, maybe more, of what we do from moment to moment is subconscious. And some of that's really good. I mean, like cell division, hair growing, nail growing, exchange of oxygen. That stuff's kind of important. Making red blood cells, that's subconscious because it's beneath the level of consciousness. It's happening. But we also have thoughts, we have behaviors, we have emotions that are basically patterns of behavior. So I started looking at hypnosis as not basically going to the subconscious, but actually opening up a portal, much like you would white fog away from a window to see through it, to the conscious mind. A little different paradigm, and it kind of it's a little different way of thinking about it for sure, but if most of what we do is subconscious, which is another fancy term for habit, hypnosis can actually help us focus on what we need to be aware of consciously. So I still think that awareness and moment to moment, and of course there are tools of doing that as well. As far as one of my favorite tools is, I call it retroactive review, where basically I go back to an event and replay how it happened, and I think, okay, what could I have said differently? What could I have done differently? And I actually integrate that into the memory. And of course, you're doing two things. You're correcting something, but you're also practicing for a similar event. So I think that actually we can go back with our conscious awareness, which is, but instead of being the subconscious driving the ship, all of it, maybe let our conscious mind actually drive some of it, especially the parts that involve what we think, what we feel, and what we do, and how we respond.
So the part that I'm hearing is that in order to go into our subconscious, it takes consciousness to go into our subconscious. So if you're really looking at the areas of habitual concept that we're no longer focusing on, and that's all pretty much subconscious means, that we're no longer focusing on them on a day to day or on a minute by minute basis. And if we go through our consciousness into the subconscious, now we are adding elements of consciousness into it, and we're shifting that and then bringing that into the present and restoring it, and that is what creates a lot of the past healings, and then that also elevates and adds to our consciousness.
Yes, because we become aware. And also, it takes a certain amount of humility, which is essentially, definitely essential to improving and evolving, to actually do that. Because you have to go, okay, what could I have done differently? What could I have said differently? And of course, with clinicians, we do that all the time, especially when we're in the steep part of the learning curve, as far as that goes. We go back and think, okay, how could I have said that differently? What could I have done differently to be more effective? So I think a good clinician will naturally do that, but other people may not want to do that.
And part of the anxiety that happens, where it happens in all of us, also happens from a subconscious and has to do with the past. But you're also saying that anxiety is a form of a fantasy. So
Yes.
Say more about why you would call anxiety a fantasy.
Okay, that was a paradigm shift. I kind of, during one of my quiet moments, when I was kind of thinking, sitting quietly and thinking, I got to thinking about how anxiety works, how we think about something that's negative that might happen, and of course our brain thinks it's actually happening. So by thinking about the negative outcome in the future, we bring it to the present. And I'm thinking, that's fantasy. It's pure fantasy. And it is. And that's where I came to that. It was one of those quiet moments where you had that lucid realization, like, why do I want to fantasize about negative stuff for? But it was a realization. So, and sometimes I've had to ask people, clients sitting across from me, especially if they're anxious, I said, so you're laying in your bed at night and you're thinking about all the bad things that could happen. I said, is that what you'd really want to rather think about? And of course, there's that realization, we're like, oh yeah. But of course, as you know, we get negativity honestly because we're actually geared to recognize negative. And of course, that means we're actually geared to fantasize about negative outcomes as well.
And why do you think we do that? Why do we need to fantasize about the negative concepts? Do we do it? Yes. Does every human being does that? Yes. But the point is, how come? How come we have to do that? What is in our system that requires us to project the negative into the future or fantasize about the negativity in the future?
I think sometimes one of the motives is the negativity that's unresolved in our past.
And you're suggesting how do we resolve that is by going and bringing consciousness into the past as it was stored in however that it was stored with the emotions and feelings.
Yes. The natural human reflex when something bad happens is not to process it ad nauseum and sort out all the thoughts and feelings and expectations and disappointments. And it's basically to put a wall around it like a capsule and move forward. And that's possible. But then, of course, as we're going along the timeline, moving along, it's still there and it's protected. And even worse, let's say arbitrarily that something happened at age 13. What kind of skills, mental, physical, and otherwise, do you have at age 13, as an example, to actually process it? So what I tell people is we've got to put one big foot in the present moment and just dip one toe into the past and add new information to old situations.
So you talk about the clinicians, the therapists, to be a conduit for healing, that the healing passes through the clinician, whether it's the physicians or whether the psychologists or social workers, and that's how you see the role of the clinician. So do you see also every person to be able to do that on their own? So there's a relationship with one person that has on their own has the ability to do it, but also they can go to a clinician or a therapist in order to create that healing. And what would be the distinct differences between the two for you?
Well, I think that every therapist should actually work to raise their consciousness, their awareness, and I think that they should learn how to likely at least put themselves in neutral and make sure that their intentions, which is of course part of consciousness as well, make sure that their intentions are in order. So basically, here's the thing, if you're in a therapy session, it's like being in a relationship, because it is a relationship, and you're not present. You're thinking about what you're going to have for dinner. You think about the parking ticket you got earlier that day. You're not in the moment with them. So I think that basically being conscious and being a conduit means you're right in that moment with them. You're making good eye contact with them. You're listening to them. You're hearing them. And you're basically allowing their subconscious and conscious awareness to let you in on what they need. And of course, trusting that intuition that you have, that you've developed. Because skills are just part of it, and technique is part of it, but there's something to be said about the consciousness of the physician. I think that's the X factor, and whether it be a physician or a counselor, that's the X factor and of the situation. It's the intangible that can't be taught, that can be learned, that can't go to a short course and probably get it, but it's something you can acquire because it is innate.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you're looking at the different aspects of you're also a social worker, licensed social worker, and also an osteopathic, right?
Correct.
Yeah, and you're also coming from a spiritual world in looking at that, and you're also a hypnosis practitioner. And how have you brought all of them into your work when you are with a client?
Good question. And it's, it was something that 10 years ago or 20 years ago, if you'd asked me that question, I could explain it. Now, I have no clue as to how to explain how it happens. And that's so strange.
So it's just part of you. It's like it has become such a fiber of who you are that they all have kind of integrated and have made you the healer that you are.
That is correct. Other people call me a healer, and I'm like, really? And of course, the book, The 16th Way, I wrote because I put a whole lot of case histories in there, things that happened. They were kind of curious and interesting. And I had the idea that all clinicians were having these experiences. And as I started integrating more and talking to others, they had not had experiences like that. I'm like, okay, well, what's up with that? But when you're doing a private practice and you're a solo practitioner, you kind of get isolated, and colleagues are competition,
right,
and you're their competition. So there's not much sharing. But then you get in situations where people are talking, and you're talking about cases, and they're like, "How did you know to do that?" I'm thinking, how would you not know how to do that? So I think that that was part of the inspiration to write the book, and it's like. Plus, I got tired of carrying all those stories in my head.
Yeah. Now, you said 16th Way. What were the other 15th?
That was nice. In 1994, I did my first short course at an Ericksonian Congress. It was in Los Angeles, actually. And I had a list of 15 ways to be a better therapist. And, I could look them up. But anyway, I thought, so the 16th way is basically raise your consciousness, raise your mojo, raise your spirituality, whatever word that you use talks about something different. So that's how the 16th way. I had the 15 ways to be a more effective therapist, but the 16th way is something a little different. Raise your consciousness, basically.
I'm trying to find the 15th way in your book so that I can tell everybody about it. 15 ways to be a more effective one. So it's a personal hope, right? Oh, it's look at behavior, situation, thoughts, feelings, and the clients bring to you in a normal way. Look for reasons, motivations, and understandings and positive benefits behind the problems. Keep the focus on here and now, which is something you said. Remember you have an influence on others, so be careful. That's very good, actually, especially in hypnosis. It was amazing to me how much influence we have on clients when they are under the hypnosis. So that was it was very intriguing for me, as I've done the hypnosis for 20 years. I wasn't trained in Ericksonian, but it's powerful. It really is. Many of the techniques are powerful. Fifth one, speak the client's experiential language. And sixth one, have the confidence of an expert, but also the curiosity of a novice. That's awesome. I need my glasses, by the way. Utilize what the client brings to therapy, values, beliefs, experiences, and utilize your own experiences. 8, be prepared for clients wanting your assistance, not wanting your assistance, and not wanting your assistant. What does that mean? Oh, they have the free will.
Yes.
Say more.
Yes, and sometimes they see because somebody else is sending them.
Oh, okay. That's what I mean. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay. 9th, keep your interventions as simple as possible. 10, do not be hung up or seduced by a particular drug or a diagnosis. 11, keep your mind open to opportunities for change and growth. 12, assume that whatever problems a client has, you are also capable of having. 13, do not use interventions you wouldn't want to use on you. And 14, do not negate your client's effort to improve themselves. And remember, this is the 5th one, remember you do not have to know everything and even most things about the client in order for them to improve. So if you are someone who's working with a therapist, you're looking for one, these 15 elements are important. And if you are a therapist, then great, you just got the 15 one. And then number 16th, raise your own consciousness level, vibration, mojo, evolution, awareness, spirituality, light, soul growth, and whatever the word, phrase, or symbol that is meaningful to you, and to describe your increasing personal vibration or frequency to become a better person. And you have chapter 8, which says how to improve the world. So tell me, all of us, about how to improve the world.
Oh my, this was I actually stumbled upon this when I was doing psychoeducational groups to substance users, chronic substance abusers. And I said, if you improve yourself, the whole world is better because you've made it better, because you've made yourself better. And of course, we can influence others, but who can we change? Ourselves. So there's one of those things that just kind of came through me during one of those sessions. I thought, this really makes sense. So if you want to improve the world, improve yourself. Be a better citizen. Be more considerate. Be more kind. Be more compassionate. Be more loving.
And Virgil, as you've worked through these 29 years of your practice and so many years of your own, if you could tell the audience in what you've learned in how to step by step put themselves into this learning of growing into their own consciousness and the values that you have learned that it works for you and that you're sharing with the other ones, what would that be? If you could talk about you, not only from a professional place, but Virgil himself, as he has utilized all that he has learned and integrated it into his own system.
I That's a really good question. Kind of deep. Nice. Thank you. I would say that what's helped is sometimes just trying to be still, even if I'm active. Be still. Don't be an expert. Don't be an expert, and just kind of be still. Learn how to take the time to be in the moment, not just distracting yourself all the time, but actually take some time every day, even if it's just a few minutes, to actually just put yourself in neutral and allow that river to keep flowing for a while. And of course, a lot of my inspiration for being still in the moment came from a most unusual source. That would have been Joseph Campbell, and reading some of his books, particularly The Power of Myth. Very powerful book.
That is a great book. That's a fantastic book, yes. Yeah.
Did you read it more than once, by the way?
I did. I read it a couple of times, and every time, it was almost like it expands and expands more questions. And I think that's partly what I've also experienced with consciousness, that there's nowhere to reach. It just expands to more questions and more questions, and this vastness of being intrigued in not being limited, and constantly connecting and looking at different variety of things that are, on earth, minimum on earth, for other people who have different kind of spiritual experiences beyond earth. Perfect. They'll have, they don't even limit themselves through earth and human beings. They'll have a vast consciousness of more than that. But even for the ones who are pretty scientific and only want to handle earth and all that is known even by science, consciousness of just of that is so vast and intriguing and amazing and mesmerizing, and I'm just so grateful. It's almost like the more that I tend to grow and be conscious, the more that I sense this gratefulness of living in this era and looking and seeing and feeling and experiencing.
And that's the thing about consciousness. It's hard to explain. You almost have to experience it. And because there's just not, I can't find the words. I can give an analogy of a big expanding bubble that's never going to pop. It may get smaller at times, but it'll keep going and growing. But I haven't found the words to actually explain it. It's something you kind of have to experience, and then it's like, then you don't need to explain it.
Yeah, it's more like experiencing it, as you said. I think that I think as human being, we end up explaining anyway, because we're, explainer machines, and everybody, in order to be able to give it to somebody else, we still have to use words and analogies, as you said, in order to transfer that experience and share it, because obviously we love to share whatever that experience is. But you're absolutely right that I think everybody has their own personal experience of it, and even two experiences might not be similar, or as even if it is similar in the sharing, it does not appear to be similar. So it's something to be felt versus just explained to someone and taught. But I think that in your 16th Way book, the Healing Emotional Pain by Raising Your Consciousness, you attempt to give a pathway of that, and how to create that. And then, as you say, that when we are more conscious beings, we are more responsible for how we come across and how we deal with other human beings and the being in our surrounding. And overall, that's what makes the world a better world for all of us to live.
And of course, I think you know as well as I that the separateness is an illusion, but it's a pretty persistent one.
Yeah, very much, yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Hayes, Virgil, for being in my show. Thank you. I know that we met actually at the Ericksonian Congress last December, and I know that you're constantly working on yourself and working with other clinicians into opening this path of consciousness, and the clients for that. And thank you for joining me. I know that your email is on the screen, so if you guys would love to be able to contact Dr. Hayes, please do so through the email. And you can also see the 16th Way. Probably, where can they find your book? Should they come through you and purchase it, or do they can also find it in Amazon?
Through at Amazon, and of course, I actually write nonfiction, actually fiction as well. This particular book is a book about what happens to someone who gets organs, idea that organs contain memories, not just the brain. What happens if a superpowered villain organs go to a kind of ordinary person?
That's cool. So we should be waiting for your second book. Now, I've noticed both of them are purple. How come?
That color just kind of resonates with me.
Okay. All
Even
right.
though people say they see blue around me, for whatever reason, purple appeals. But there have been people who tell me they see blue around me.
Oh, okay. So the aura of the blue is around you, but you're fascinated with the purple. That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming, and hopefully you'll join me again when your fiction book is ready, and we can definitely discuss that.
Excellent. You take care now.
Thank you. And thank all of you for being with us for another week. And until next week, have a wonderful, wonderful day and create a wonderful world. Bye-bye.